Hello and welcome. As you may know, I am continuing my warm-up for this Tuesday's Excel All-Star Battle. Excel is esports, so I've been working through some old problem-solving problems today. I'm grabbing one from the FMWC Open last year called the Gambler. This is the question that I got knocked out on by Joseph Palasok. So I thought it would be a fitting one to come back to. I'm going to have one more warm-up video tomorrow morning right before the tournament. I'm saving a big beast for that one, but I figured, tackle the one that knocked my butt out wouldn't be a bad way to go. So very quickly, this is based on the game of roulette. So, you spin a wheel, it gives you a number between 0 and 36. And you can place bets on different things. So you can place a bet on black versus red, on odd versus even, on whether the number is, between 1 and 18 or between 19 and 36. So these guys here, black or red, odd or even, whether it's in the first 12, second 12, third 12, or whether it's in the first, second, or third column. Obviously, these are rows here, but it's been transposed, I guess. Anyway, you get the idea. So, trying to figure out a strategy. So we've got here, so you can bet on red or black, odd or even, low or high, column 1, column 2, column 3, dozen 1, dozen 2, dozen 3. And if you bet on any of the ones that are, so basically, 0 you always lose. But aside from that, there are 36 things. So if it's red versus black, you're betting 50-50. Even versus odd, you're betting 50-50. 1 to 18 versus 19 to 36. So low versus high, you're betting 50-50. And then first 12, second 12, third 12, and column 1, column 2, column 3, those are ones where it's 2 to 1 odds against you getting it right. And so these ones all pay out 1. So in other words, if you bet $1 and it comes up on your color or parity or whatever, then you win $1. These ones pay out 2 to 1. So if you bet $1, you get $2. So a few different things. So it starts off with just a kind of thing to check you've got it set up right. What's the total value of numbers in these groups? So the total value of numbers in column 1 is 234, which hopefully will, let's see if we sum these up. That's 210. Sorry, did I say column 1? It's column 3. Okay, well, bad start. Anyway, column 3, 234, as expected. Okay, then next thing is starting to bet. So if you bet 7 chips on red and number 3 comes up, well, if we jump up here, we can see number 3 is red, so you win. So you win 7 chips. Okay, so that's the idea there. Then we start kind of getting into betting strategies here. So you start each game with 100 chips. You employ the same betting strategy. So every time, bet the same, make the same sequence of bets. So first you bet 21 chips on odd, then 3 chips on column 1, then 18 chips on high, 25 chips on red, 23 chips on red, and so on. And these are the different things that come up, and you have to figure out how much money you have left at the end. And these games are calibrated so that you can't run out of money. And then level 4, similar idea. Except here it's the sequence of outcomes, and chips stays the same, but the sequence of bets that you make is different each time. And this time it's set up so that you can run out of money. That was actually where I went wrong. It was all going swimmingly right up until this one, and then I forgot to allow for the possibility that you run out of money. So there was some cases where you were down to $10. The next bet was supposed to be $25, and I would bet $25 and you'd win. And so it'd be like, okay, great, now you've got $35, except you didn't have that much money to bet in the first place, and so that was not correct. And then level 5, if I get to it, which I may or may not, is a much more complicated thing with a weird strategy. So we'll come back to that. All right. So the sort of heart of tackling this problem is setting up, and preferably setting up in a neat way, a table that tells you, for each different role, is it red or blue, odd or even, low or high, which dozen, which column. So let's just start off here. We'll do sequence. So I want 37 rows starting from 0. Obviously unblue them, unblue that as well. So this is going to be number. Oops, let's just fit that. So then I'm going to want, is it red or blue? Is it odd or even? Is it low or high? What column and what dozen? So let's start with a dozen because that part's pretty easy, and I'm just going to put X as the answer for all of these. So in other words, if I want to return, let's say, 1 is red, then if I bet on red and I get an R, then I win. If I bet on black and I get a B, I win. If I bet and I get the opposite one, I lose. But if it's, as long as I'm never able to bet on X, then whenever 0 comes up, I always lose, which is the intention. So I'll come back to red black. That's the trickiest one. So here we can just say if is odd, that, then O, otherwise it's even. Copy that down. Then low high, that's again easy. If this is less than or equal to 18, then L, just have to be careful around the edges. So 18 is low, 19 is high, good. Then the column, let's do the dozen first, that's a little easier. So you could do a similar thing to this, just if it's less than or equal to 12, if it's less than or equal to 24, or you could say equals round up the number divided by 12 to 0 decimal places. So if you divide anything from 1 to 12 by 12, you get a number that's greater than 0 up to 1. And if you round that up to 0 decimal places, that's a 1. And then once you get to 13, you get whatever divided by 12, you get 1.08. That rounds up to 2, and so on all the way down to 24, which divides to give you exactly 2. And so that formula will give you the correct dozen. Then for the column, again, you could do, check if there's a match here, check if there's a match here, check if there's a match here. But in the land of dynamic arrays, you can also do something like this. You can say concat if this, so if the board, and I'll lock that in, is equal to the current number, then give me this column. I'll lock that in, otherwise give me nothing. And so basically what that'll give you is, whatever, for the 1 here, it'll give you col 1, and for the other 35 positions, it'll give you double blank, and then you empty double quotes. So you can cat all those together, and you'll just be left with col 1. Now I'm going to happen to remember that the codes later on down here are C1, C2, C3, etc. So I'm going to just change these, get rid of OL space, replace it with blank, so that I get C1. And that reminds me that I'm also supposed to put D in front of these, so I will do that. And then the trickiest one is red-blue, red-black. Now, honestly, a sensible strategy at this point would just be to go through and manually do them, just because, there's not that many to do, and it's worth getting on with it. But you don't come to my channel for my sensible strategies, so I will show you an alternative option that's a little more scalable if you had to do it in a kind of non-manual way. So what I'm doing is I'm copying, pasting over here, so I have the format. This thing here, I'm removing the borders just in case, maybe some of these borders are thicker or whatever. What I want is for all the red cells to be formatted the same. And then I'm going to do Control Find, and I'm going to search by format. I'm going to get format from cell, that one. Don't want anything there. I want to replace with a 1, and the area I want to search is this, and then I just hit replace all, and now all my reds are 1s. And so now I can just say equals if, so I'm going to sum ifs, I'm going to add up these, where these are this number. And so basically any time that I have a red number, let's say 18 here, then I'll be summing the corresponding one there, which is 1. Anytime I have a black number, say it's 17, I'll be summing the corresponding one there, which is blank, so it gives me 0. So if sum ifs is greater than 0, then it's red, otherwise it's black. And that's, a strategy that you could still apply if you had a grid of, 500 of these instead of just 36, rather than having to do it manually. But it's worth doing a quick manual check. 1 is red, 2 is black, 3 is red, 4 is black, 5 is red, 6 is black, 7 is red, 8 is black. Let's find one where it changes. 10 and 11, both black. Okay, so that's behaving as you would expect. And now, the nice thing is that these first set of questions will basically help us to check that we have calibrated correctly. So I'm going to do sum ifs. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a table because that'll make it easier to refer to it later. So let's just do that. Okay, I'm going to give it the name outcomes. Okay, so now I'm going to say equals sum ifs. I'm going to sum outcomes, not outputs. I'm going to sum the numbers, because that's the question here, where, so first outcomes, red, blue, and red, black, I keep saying blue, is that. Gives me my answer there, and there. A little weirdly slowly, but never mind. And actually, you know what? I realize I could do it with a different formula for odd even, a different formula for low high, a different formula for column. But again, because we're now living in the world of dynamic arrays, I'm actually going to say equals sum if this whole thing equals the code, then give me this. And I can do that because the codes don't appear ever in multiple columns. So this will basically take that vector of numbers and stretch it out into a 5 column, like 5 copies of that, but it'll only ever match in one column. So if that, then the number, otherwise 0, and then just sum that up. And oh, battery running low. Let's plug in. All right. So then we can copy that formula down to all 10, and we can copy it up here and make sure that it still gives 234, which it does. I don't know why it's running quite so slowly tonight, but anyway. Okay, so now how much will you win if you bid the following number of chips on the following sectors and the ball lands on the following number outcome? So given the outcome, 5, I'm going to say index outcomes. I'll just take the whole table. I'm going to take this number plus 1, because remember I've got the 0 there. Sorry, and then comma 0 to give me the whole row. And then the format to go 1 square further over. So this is saying for 3 it's red, odd, low, column 3, and dozen 1. And I'll copy the same thing down to the rest. And so, now, yeah, remember this as well, that it slightly mixes between the codes and the full names. So I'm just going to do a quick find and replace here again, column, no format, column space, and replace with nothing. So those become C's, and then dozen space and replace with nothing. So those become just D's. And then the other thing we have to factor in is that we have a multiple. So if we win on red, odd, or low, that's all 1s. If we win on the other 2, that's 2s. So then I can say if I bet 10, then my winnings will be 10 times sum ifs. I want to sum these multiples where this code here is equal to the code that came up. So let's just quickly explain that. So I'm saying here, I bet on C2. So does that match B? No. E? No. H? No. C2? Yes. So I take 2, and D2? No. So obviously any one will only ever match in one column. This is just a way of checking all 5 columns in the same formula. So then here C2 again, I win, so I get double. C3 I win, so I get double. Odd I win, so I get the same amount. I bet red I win, so I get the same amount. I bet on D3, and some of these I have to lose. Oh, sorry. Yeah, odd. I also need to. So I gotta change it to be O. Some extra spaces there. And red I have to change to be R. Oh yeah, it's giving me the spaces because it's a merged cell. Anyway, so that's E. That's D3. All right. So anyway, copy on down. There should be a couple where we lose. So D3. I bet on D3, but D1 came up. I bet on C1, but C3 came up, and so on. Oh yeah, now I did set up a score sheet similar to what we get to see in the competition, just so I can check. Okay, so I've got the full points on level 1 and 2, so let's crack right on. So here we're saying start each game with 100 chips, employ the same betting strategy, and we get all these different round outcomes. And the question is, how much money will you have after the 10 games? So sorry. So I guess, yeah. So what I want to do is just figure out how many chips I have left after each one. So I start off with 100, and then I just something like this. So basically what I want to do is say on this one, when I'm betting on odd, check if row 24, or the row with 24, which is row 25, because I've got the 0, if that contains an O. And if it does, then I win the amount I bet, which is 21, and if it doesn't, then I lose the amount I bet, which is 21. So I'm going to say some ifs. Let's do, actually, so I was going to do the 1s and 2s, but actually, if I want to account for what I can lose as well, then let's do this way. So let me just copy my header row here. It'll make it a little easier to work with. So the number I have nothing. Then red, blue, if I win, I'm going to make this 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then I'm going to subtract 1 from this. So in other words, I'm going to say, when I make a red-blue bet, actually, am I subtracting? Am I even making sense? Let's just write the formula and see if it makes sense. So I'm going to say equals that plus the amount I bet. I'll lock in the lock in the column. No, lock in the row, I mean, so that I can copy this down. Times, and then I'm going to say some ifs. This, lock that in, where index, outcomes, and the row number I want is this, plus 1, because again, remember I have the 0, very important, and 0 to give me the whole thing, where that is this. So in other words, if the 21st row of the table, or the, again, 25th, because 24 is the outcome, if that contains an O, then give me the multiple corresponding to the right column for that. So here it's here it is 2, here it's 3, and the reason that I'm doing, instead of having the 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, which is how much you win, I'm going to multiply it by the outcome you get from this minus 1, and so I'm going to have 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, so that if you don't get a match, you get 0 here, and then you add a minus 1 to that. I hope that's clear. I don't know. Sometimes I find it hard to tell if I'm being clear enough in my explanations. Anyway, so that sum if will give you, a 2 if you get a match on red, black, odd, even, low, high. It'll give you a 3 if you get a match on the column or on the diagonal. Otherwise, it'll give you 0. So if it gives you 0, then you multiply by minus 1, you lose your bet. And if it gives you the other things, then you win the appropriate amount. So here, for example, we bet on odd. 24 came up, 24 is even, so we lost, so we're down 21 chips. Let's just zip along and see if that matches. 69 at the end, so that does match, so that makes me feel reasonably good that it's probably working. So let's just go and plug these in. So here, copy down. I'll just go check the score. Yes, okay, that worked. So now we go on to level 4. So here, again, we've got the round outcome, number of chips bet. I just realized that I think the way I have set up my, checking is going to break if I insert new rows here, which I want to do. So I guess I'll have to unhide the answer tab and insert new rows there as well so that it unbreaks. So let's see, I think I want to put in 5, 3, 4, 5 new rows there. And then I'll hide that again, and 5 new rows here. And so we're going to have transpose of this. So basically, again, I'm going to convert each outcome into, okay, so if it lands on 11, what does that mean for red, black? What does it mean for odd, even, etc.? And we'll do that by saying index on this table, and actually, I'll just drop the first row so that I don't have to keep doing the plus 1. Round outcome is 11 and 0 for all the rows, and then I need to transpose that to run top to bottom instead of left to right. So let's see, I locked in, yes, so something errored out here, 0. Oh, sorry, yeah, okay, so whoops, then I guess I need to include the 0 after all. And that makes sense. You can lose. So let's do this. And let's then add back in the +1. Oops. And copy across. So now my error has gone away, and my 0, sure enough, turns up x, 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 x. Cool. That all makes sense. So now, here I bet d2, and it comes up d1, so I lose. That's all easy enough to follow along. And so then I just want the transpose of my multiples from up here. And let me just type that in again. It's easy. 2, 2, 2 for the ones that are 50-50, and 3, 3 for the ones that are not. So then, let's come over here. Start off with 100, and then I have 50 bets. So I'll place the column widths, place the labels. Oops. And then what are we going to say? We're going to say equals this plus. Now, start off doing it naively. I'll do it exactly the same way as I did it last time, and then I'll show you how that doomed me before. So number of chips bet, I'll lock that in, times sum ifs. We're going to sum the multiple that you get if you match this. I'll lock in the, whoops. This still bugs me about dynamic arrays, that if I select a dynamic array and then I press F4, it doesn't lock, because the hash is, I guess, getting in the way. But anyway, so I'll put that in. So if that is a match for this C2. So in other words, if C2 matches here, it'll give me 3. If C2 doesn't match, it'll give me 0. So that minus 1. So in other words, if I win, I get, I add 2 times what I bet on this one. If I lose, then I subtract what I bet, because this whole sum if evaluates to 0. So that's the sort of naive version. And I think that actually, that did not come out with the right answer for that. So maybe I have stuffed something up. But anyway, oh, hang on, sorry, wait, did I? I feel like I was pointing to the first example instead. Yes, I was. Okay, so that's the first mistake. I got to point to example when I'm working on the example. Copy across. Okay, so you can see this one. I don't know how I didn't notice this in the day, but anyway, this one goes negative along the way. So obviously the fact that it goes negative, the issue there is that you have bet at some point along the way more money than you have. So the 25th bet calls for you to wager 23, but after 24 you only have 19, so you've lost more than all you have. So this was the mistake I made, and I guess I just had it coming out to a positive number for some, anyway, I don't know. This was the mistake I made, so that was why I stuffed this up. And now the really embarrassing part is going to be when I show you just how easy it is to fix that. So it's just going to be the min of the amount you're targeting to bet and the amount you have, and that fixes it. And so the question is, after how many rounds do you lose all the money? So we're going to, we should be getting 25. Let's check if we do. We're going to X match 0 against this, comma 0 for exact match, which I think it does anyway. Search for first to last, which it might also do anyway, but anyway, just to be sure. And that sure enough gives 25. So now let's copy these formulas down, and let's copy this formula down and see how I check out there. And sure enough, that gives me all the points there. So let's jump right on to level 5. And as with many of the FMWC Open cases, and it might be the case again for the competition on Tuesday, there's 4 levels that are kind of, somewhat reasonable, and then there's a 5th level that is just a totally different beast. So let's take a look. You start each game with 100 chips. And you have this weird betting strategy. So you bet on the 12 groups in the order they're listed. So in other words, you bet red, then black, then odd, then even, then low, then high, then column 1, 2, 3, dozen 1, 2, 3. If you win a round, you keep betting the same group. Otherwise, if you lose, you move on to the next group. After you reach the end of the list, you start back from the beginning. You bet 10 chips in the first round. If you win, you add 5 chips. If you lose, you subtract 5 chips. Never bet less than 5, never bet more than 20. So far, a little intense, but I get it. then here's the fun part. If you have 50 chips or less, you can't bet on groups that provide the payout of 2 to 1, as they're too risky. So in that case, if you're due to bet on a more risky group, start over from group 1. But as soon as you have 51 chips again, revert back to the previous order exactly where you left. So if you bet on dozen 1, you lose the bet. You would have been going on to dozen 2, but that's too risky, so now you go and bet on red. But then if at any point after that you get back above 51, then you revert back to dozen 2. So that's, I don't know, I found that a little confusing. I didn't even attempt it on the day. But so this is one where I think we need a little more space. So I'm going to come over here. And we're just going to do, so rather than trying to cram everything into one row as I did with the rest of these, because they're, the logic is fairly simple, we're going to just spread out one game over a thing. So now let's see, what have we got here? The table is round outcome. So let's start with round number, and there's 50 rounds. Outcome, we're going to say X lookup this in here. Returning from, I don't even need to lock it because I'm only doing it once. Don't need to copy it anywhere. Returning from there, and then we're going to transpose all that. So those are my 50 outcomes, and then I guess I'll just take my table headers again, and then I'll say index outcomes, starting from RB, going to D, and the row number is this plus 1, and the column number is 0 for all the columns. So those are my outcomes. Let's just see, my 0 is all X's. That's good. Let's just freeze pane so that I can keep sight of that. So then let's see, start with a bet index, which starts at 1. I have to do the penalty index separately, so let's just, so bet, I'll leave a few empty columns to put in the adjustments here, but for now let's just say bet is index. The list of bets is here. I want the codes, and index on that. Oops, and get rid of the sheet name. So for now let's just say we do that plus 1. So we first bet red, then black, then odd, then even, then low, then high, then column 1, column 2, column 3, dozen 1, dozen 2, dozen 3, and then it breaks. And so to stop that breaking, we're just going to say mod this 12 plus 1. And that makes it circle around. And we're going to have to adjust it even further, because if we win, then we don't want to add 1. We just want to keep going. So I'll come back to that. So let's just say result. And so here again, I'm going to say 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. I'm going to say some ifs, these, where these match that, minus 1. So here we bet on red, it came up black, we lose. Here we bet on black, it came up red, we lose. Here we bet on odd, it came up odd, we win. And again, when we win on a column, we get a double win. So that all makes sense. So then I guess we'll go for wager next, and we start off at 10, I think. Bet 10 chips in the first round. Okay. I'm just going to make that one and this one be red. And then we'll say if we win, so if that's greater than 0, then the smaller of that plus 5, and I think the limit was 20. Yeah, stay between 5 and 20. Otherwise, it's the larger of 06 minus 5 and 5. So we bet 10, we lose, so we go down to 5. We lose again, but we can't go lower, so we stay at 5. We win, so we go up to 10. We lose, down to 5, eventually we win, go up to 10. Win there, go up to 15, lose, go back down to 10, etc., etc. We jump around. Okay, so that's working. So then, I guess let's pot 100 So then we're going to say this plus result times that. Okay. So then low pot question mark, and now is it less than or equal to 50 chips or less? So we're going to say this less than or equal to 50. Okay. So then, first things first, let's just make sure we fix this. So if we win, we want to keep going. So if the result of the previous round is greater than 0, then keep the same index. Otherwise, add 1 mod 12. Shoot that down. So now we lose, so we change, we lose, so we change, then we win, 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 win. Wow, that's a good winning streak there. Yeah, these all come up odd. Okay, fine. So we win a whole bunch, and that means our wager goes up to 20, and we build up a big pile, and so on, so on, so on. Okay. So I guess in this game we maybe never, we never go below 50. So that's a little harsh. So we can get the example out, but we have not tested our below 50 logic. So anyway, now let's do a penalty index. So how are we going to do this? It's based on whether the pot was low at the end of the previous turn. So I'm going to say if this, if that is true, then if this is greater than 0, then we already had one before, so we just have to do the logic. So if we won, if the result is greater than 0, then we keep the same bet. Otherwise, we mod previous one 6 plus 1. That's if the previous one was greater than 0. If the previous one wasn't greater than 0, we're starting a new penalty index, so we start from 1. And then if we don't have a low pot, then I'll just make that double quotes. So let's see. Well, I guess on the example, we'll never hit it. So I don't know. Let's just try one and see if we can hit the penalty index. Try 71. Okay, well, value error, it means it's trying. So, oh yeah, so sorry. I used if greater than 0, but what I should have done is different from double quotes to test if there was a value in there before. So here, let's see. So we bet for a while. Oh yeah, now I have to separately freeze this. That was the logic that threw me off before. I have to freeze this when there's a penalty index. I'll come back to that in a second. But so let's see. We get below 50. So sorry, we get 250. So if that's something we lose, we lose, we win, we're all staying below 50 all the time. Eventually we win, get back up to 55, and then we come back out here. Okay, so then what I need to do is freeze this. So I'm going to say if this is not blank, then now hang on. So let's say this is my, so I was betting on dozen, this is actually exactly the example. So I was betting on dozen 1, I lost, so I go on to the next one. So I do want to go on to 11, so I don't want to freeze until after that. So I guess what I should say is if the previous row is different from blank, then keep it the same, otherwise follow whatever the normal logic is. So that makes it stay at 11 for a while. So let's just copy that out and see what works. And then say apply index. And here I will say equals if this equals. So if there's no penalty index, then take the bet index, otherwise take the penalty index. So I guess I'll just call this base index. And then I'll base this on the applied index. And I copy both of those down. So let's see. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We lose on 10. That takes us to 50. So then we go into penalty mode. Red, black, odd, even, low, high, red, black. So we rotate through those, and we do eventually come back out of penalty mode, get up to 55, and then we bet on 11, which is dozen 2, which is exactly where we would have been on the next bet. Okay, so I think that's working now. Well, it should be easy to find out if it is. Let's see, we've got games from 71 to 100. So let's say sequence. I want 30 rows starting from 71, and I want the final pot. I'm going to do a data table, which again, if you've been watching any of my videos lately, you've certainly seen this. It basically says if I take each of these 30 values, plug them into this cell, then what does this cell up here become? So do that, we hit calculate, and then let's copy those, Alt-S, Alt-L, paste them in there. Okay, so we got some, but not all. Oh, I've got a negative number in there. That's a very bad sign. Oh yeah, so simple one. I have not been limiting my wager. So that's dumb, but easy to fix. So let's see. So where I'm here multiplying by my wager, I actually want to multiply by the smaller of my wager and my available pot. Copy that down. Let's look at where's my negative? Here it is, game 96. Let's recalc. Now that gets to 0. Doing slightly better, but still wrong. Okay. I don't know. I can't figure it out. So I'm gonna debug it after and not make you watch me do this because it's getting kind of painful already. I might even cut some of this off the end of the video. But so that's the general approach. Let's see. I got 820, which is not what I wanted to get, considering that I've solved this case a couple of times before, but it would have been enough to get me through on the day, which I didn't. So, you know, there's upsides and downsides to that. Like I said, I've got one more training video to come. I'll put it out on Tuesday morning, and then you can come watch me in the live thing if you want. All right, wish me luck, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.